Can you share with us the inspiration behind writing this memoir?
For years, people who have known me closely have been telling me that I should write about myself because my life is a bit different. Women are always framed or termed socially as womb bearers and homemakers. They have a kind of a role of mother, daughter, sister, wife, and everything is sort of revolves around there. Women also don't really talk a lot about themselves. Men can talk about their working life as a writer, as a experience, and they can keep the personal life as a different cushion where all that has been protected. My family who adopted me, they had really strong women. The most important thing is that marriage is not a crutch. Marriage is something that is kind of a yagya, and both partners offer and to get the best result out of it.
You're the founder of Moral Fibre. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about this venture and your mission?
I moved to England, and there I saw the other side of textile industry. Sustainability is becoming part of the worldview. I found that Khadi deserved much better place in the industry world over than where it was. When we talk about fast fashion and we talk about throwaway, all those kind of issues are not there when you are directly involved in making your clothes and making your lifestyle.
Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Shailini Sheth Amin. She's a distinguished architect, sustainability advocate, and founder of the ethical fashion label Moral Fibre. With a background in architecture and finance, she champions energy efficiency, heritage conservation, and fair trade practices. Her memoir, Fit In, Stand Out, Walk Stories from a Pushed Away Hill, chronicles her journey from an orphan child in Mumbai to an award winning sustainability warrior. Amin's work emphasizes the intersection of personal growth, social impact, and environmental responsibility. Her innovative approach to fashion and dedication to ethical practices reflect her deep commitment to creating a positive and sustainable future. Really, the call of the hour. So, let's just start with your book, Fit and Standout Walk. Can you share with us the inspiration behind writing this memoir?
Thank you, Mahua. Nice to be part of your show, and thank you for introduction. Um, for years, people who have known me closely have been telling me that I should write about myself because my life is a bit different. And they thought there would be an interest, but I had constantly been working as a director of Moral Fibre and other initiatives that I was involved with. So it took me some time. Finally, the book came out, and it is a story of actually Neelima. That's how the whole story is projected, and it starts from 1950s. And this is about an unusual childhood that Neelima had. She was abandoned and then adopted, and um, she was adopted by some amazing women. So it was a story of people in her life. The observation has been that women are always framed or termed socially as womb bearers and homemakers, and home and family was their primary responsibility, which is not deniable. But their lives have been considered quite formulaic. They have a kind of a role of mother, daughter, sister, wife, and everything is sort of revolves around there. Even if the women are working within the community, making really good contributions, their life has always been seen that. And women also don't really talk a lot about themselves. Um, I think it is again a kind of a social dilemma. If you consider men's lives, their life has two distinction as a personal life and as a private life. And the men can talk about their working life as a writer, as a experience, we're talking about the experiences, emotions, talking about even their work, their thoughts, their philosophy, and they can keep the personal life as a different cushion where all that has been protected. When women's life are not like that, because we are so involved with the family and people around us, that anything that is, even the work is so entwined with the personal life and people around us, and the society has not been that kind or understanding about women. when you talk about women's achievement or glory, sometimes it is termed as being pushy, being proud, being bitchy. And you talk
Oh,
about the frustrations or their problems, they are seen as weak or ineffective or incapable. So many people don't really talk about it. Uh, Amazing women in my life, in my childhood, also didn't talk about it. So I always wanted to tell their stories. They were freedom fighters, they were educationists, they worked on the grassroots levels and all that, but they never really told the story. So when I started writing the story of Neelima, it was about their story and also about Neelima's story, because her life as a working woman was also very similar. That her family and her circumstances influenced her, and what she wanted to do in her life, or what she achieved, or what she didn't achieve, or even finding her own self. So it's again, the stories of that. So those are the kind of um, ideas and thoughts that I thought are really worth talking about, and that's why the story came up.
absolutely, Shalini. It is absolutely worth talking about. So, the title and the cover page of your book, Fit In, Stand Out, Walk, is quite evocative. So how did you choose this title and what does it signify for you as a person?
As I said, Neelima was abandoned as a little child in Mumbai, and then she was adopted, and then she lost her mother again at the age of 9. So I think the whole effort of fitting in started in her much earlier than probably many others. So the whole conflicts of fitting in, and also whatever effort you make of fitting in, she was different. She was not, so she was always standing out, whether she was liked, unliked, despised, being jealous, or, being ignored, being demonized, or whatever. So she was standing out as well, along with, so that whole conflict of fitting in, standing out was always there. And she also was an outsider in that sense. So she was kind of from a pushed away hill, and at the end of the day, it was a journey that made her who she was. So I think that's how the whole title came together. And the book cover story is also very interesting. Um, my publisher wanted my ideas, and I sent some pictures and all that, and some photos, some paintings of artists. And very interestingly, they put together this cover. And in Nilima's life, nature had a very strong influence. Nature was supportive, blessing, inspiring, and also her involvement with the environmental issues and all that. Somehow, that book cover really expressed all of that. So I'm really, really grateful to my publisher to find that cover for me.
So, your memoir details your experiences as an orphan in Mumbai. It's a very personal question. So, how did, this early part of your life influence the person that you've become today, Shalini?
As I explained to you, that my family who adopted me, they had really strong women. My two aunts and my mother, and their parents and her mother, they were all very, very strong people. But some of them were widows, some of them didn't get married, some of them were related by blood, some of them were related by emotions and love. It was an amazing women's family. It was a commune. It was a matriarchal thing, and they had a kind of a lifelong connectedness with all of that. So, though they were amazingly capable, but they were very much rooted to the ground, and they were on personal levels, they had their own traumas as well. They lost their parents, they had their traumas about childhood thing, relationships disjointed, family connection, and again, surviving alone in men's world. That itself was a big challenge. There were losses, and but in spite of all of that, they had a vision and a mission, and they were survivors. So those are the kind of things that really, really influenced me, and that sort of guided me. And again, they are fantastic stories, and I think that helped me in making my views and making my choices in my life.
So, your book really explores very, very difficult subjects, right? There's abandonment, there's adoption, there's domestic abuse, there is loss, there is grief. So, how did you navigate all these emotions while you were writing, your memoir?
It's very interesting. I mean, Neelima was very fortunate that she had found, in spite of being orphaned twice, she had the great grooming, great upbringing with all of that. But in our society, if we see, as I grew up and I sort of saw that even more and more, that our society, our histories, world history, Indian histories are full of characters like that. You talk about Sita, you talk about Shakuntala, Sri Krishna, Karna, and there's so many characters. Also, in the Western thing, Oliver Twist, and even Harry Potter, they were all abandoned and adopted, and they had their life mission carved out from there. And they were positive stories. Also, Nelson Mandela, you talk about Steve Jobs. So obviously, being a part of the whole popular culture, all these things were part of my life as well. But I'm also extremely aware that these are very, very rare situations, and these are all heroes in their own context, which is not deniable. But there are thousands and thousands on a daily basis. The children get orphaned, they get lost, they lose their family connections and all that, and they get into situation where they get sent into begging, they get into gundaraj, they get into prostitution, they get trafficked, drugging. All of that also is such a part of their reality. There is nobody there to help them out. Jails are full of them, institutions are full of them. So I'm also very, very aware of that. When these few voices are always revered, and they are all being put on the pedestal, there's so many voices and are in the shadows, and they are never heard. So I'm very aware of all of that as well.
Yeah, I so agree with you that so many voices are just not heard because they probably are not even cognitive about whatever that's happening around them. Let's talk a little bit about finding your own footing. So, the concept of finding one's footing is central, to your story. So, how did you go about finding your own footing in a world that often must have felt very uncertain?
I think one of the things that happened that is well expressed by Neelima is that she had her life had been on a brink at several times in her life. Right from the being abandoned and accepted and losing parents, and even when she became the first time the mother, her relationship broke. So I think on emotional and practical level, all those kind of being on the brink and finding the way was a part of her life, whether she liked it or not. She just had to deal with it, and she had to find uh, to uh, to make sense of the world that was coming to her and slipping away. So all of that was very much there. Along with that, there is the whole search of finding you as a person and finding your purpose, finding what you are doing. And that was kind of another way of finding your footing, and that was something that I think stemmed from the realities, but also with the influences that she had, with the upbringing that she had, and probably her own will, that finding the positivity, finding courage in situations that has really created that position where she managed to find her identity, her work, her mission, and all that. Of course, it was all at the end of the day, whatever that you project, but at the end of the day, it should be extremely satisfying and meaningful to a person. So I think that was a different level of quest that also went on. And in a way, I think Neelima was a happy person, that, or at least she was fulfilled, and she found joy and she found hope in various situations. So I think that was an interesting story.
Your memoir also explores personal transitions, such as marriage and divorce. So, how have these experiences really influenced your perspective on relationships and personal growth? So, let's just hear that, hear your perspective on this.
Yes, again, that was a kind of a progressive thing. Uh, Her being, as I said, not having the family, not having the siblings. I think in the first relationship, I think being liked by somebody, being accepted by somebody, I think meant a lot to her because that really made her find her own identity, or she started loving herself because somebody else did, and gave her a confidence. It was like heaven for her at that time. But unceremoniously, that relationship broke down in a very crucial time, that when she was having her first baby. So, of course, that was very, very hard. Uh, it was hard emotionally. It was hard practically. Only a golden light at that time that she had a lovely little daughter, and it was very important. It was very clear. It was very motivational for her to take care of her, love her, protect her. So through that, she found the energies and will to move out and move on. But of course, those scars do remain. I mean, we all. I mean, in today's environment, divorcing with the children are very young and all that is becoming more common. But my heart really goes out to the children and the family, how these things are coped with. And I suppose that is why so many people need psychiatrist help later on in their life, because all these things are unresolved issues. So I'm very, very aware of that. Having gone through all of that, the most important thing is that marriage is not a crutch. Marriage is something that I somehow see that it is kind of a yagya, and both partners offer, and to get the best result out of it, it is offering and giving and receiving, but it is giving for a common good. And I think that is something which is very, very important. One
Yeah.
has to have a self respect, one has to have a self worth, one has to believe in yourself, one doesn't have to be reliant on anybody else. And no one is responsible for your thought, feeling, emotions, and your own happiness. And once you are content in yourself, I think the relationships work much better. So I think those kind of realizations are also very important, and that's something that also I came. And I think that is where I think all relationships succeed, when the neediness or a crutch approach is abandoned, and people find their own selves and then give.
Wonderful. You've said something that has really echoed with me, that neediness and that crutch, which is really abandoned and they find their own self worth. I think that's when healthy relationships happen. So let's
Absolutely.
talk. Yeah, let's just talk a little bit about your business, Shalini. I mean, you're the founder of Moral Fibre. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about this venture and your mission? And also, your work is deeply influenced by the Gandhian philosophy. So, can you elaborate on this a little bit more?
As my story goes, my mother passed away when I was 9. She died of cancer, and it was my aunt who was a freedom fighter and who worked with educationist and worked with Gandhi. She became my mentor and my uh, so she was a supporter of Khadi fabric and the Gandhi's movement and everything else. So even in our own house, we had a little outhouse where we used to. She set up the first Khadi shop in Ahmedabad through her trust, and we had a little Khadi unit at home where women used to come and take the work and everything. So I had all of that in my DNA, but of course I became an architect, and then I started doing other stuff. With my second marriage, we moved to England, and there I saw the other side of textile industry as well, apart from working as an architect. And I saw how sustainability is becoming part of the worldview. Energy efficiency, especially architecture, was at the
Yeah.
forefront of all of that. But I also started seeing the other side of textile chain, that how do the consumers see it, what do they expect out of it. The whole fair trade movement was pretty strong in the late 90s, so all of that was my experiences. So when we moved back to India, I wanted to pick up one of the work that my aunt was doing, and that was Khadi. And I started seeing the Khadi scene from a completely different way. As a child, how I saw the handspun, handwoven fabric and the beauty and all of that was great. But I saw the whole of that industry deteriorating, and the work was um, I found that the khadi deserved much better place in the textile industry world over than where it was, and most of the time it was all because of uh, there was lack of vision, lack of quality, lack of placement. So we said we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So Moral Fibre did not really set up any factory. We worked with the existing cooperatives, but we curated our own catalogs. And one of the things that we did, apart from just relying on Gandhi's philosophy and the emotional side of it, we said Moral Fibre fabrics free the environment from pollution and depletion and free people from poverty. And that whole thing really picked up very well. And the connecting the environment, connecting the poverty, connecting the artisan was a kind of a way that we started working. About Gandhi's philosophy, I would love to say that Gandhi, right now, it's very sad that sometimes the way Gandhi's work is being projected, it is being, for various reasons, being maligned or undervalued and all that. Well, I'm not going to go into those kind of arguments or discussions, but he was one of the visionary of his time. He had looked at the poverty, the village swaraj, and all of that in a completely different way, self-sufficiency. And what he could do was that he could put all of that in a kind of a workable, actionable context. He was known as the ecological yogi by Khushru and various other things. And he believed in that poverty was a biggest disease. Also, he believed that people shouldn't be too wealthy because that is also a wrong side. So all those kind, and also about the self-sufficiency, making khadi yourself, uh, 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 uh,
Building your own thing.
working with your hands, all those kinds of things were very very important to in that whole philosophy. And even that has relevance even now, that when we talk about fast fashion and we talk about throwaway, all those kind of issues are not there when you are directly involved in making your clothes and making your lifestyle. So there were lots of things that those aspects that influenced me at the time, and they still do. They're still more relevant now than even before, I think. So that's where it is.
Absolutely. It's a complete comeback, I think, you know. I remember my grandfather wearing a khadi coat, and the khadi store in Delhi where we grew up in, there used to be I used to wear the khadi kurtas and used to get fabrics there, and and you know that fabric was so amazing that during winters it becomes warm and during summers it's cool.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and I think all this magic is really not spoken about as much as it should, because I think we are really rich in our country as far as the traditional arts and crafts go, Shalini. But let's just talk a little bit about the book. What do you think that the readers should take away from Fit and Standout Walk?
I think the most important thing is bad thing happens to everybody. That's one thing. And experiences. I have seen people who have gone through terrible things about losing the family, being in the war, being in a horrible thing. But people have survived in a certain way. And people with the littlest of the trauma in the family, maybe something with the sibling and all that, and they have suffered through all of that for the rest of their lives. So it is how one tells the story yourself. Things happen. The bad things happen, good things happen.
Yeah.
How do you make your own story? How do you make your own history? Whether you're doing it from the position of strength or weakness, whether you're doing it with the position of joy or sorrow. And I think that is what forget about anybody else, but it's how you write your own story, how you write your own uh, past. Past is not something cast in stone, it is interpretations. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you erase and rewrite everything, but it is your attitude and approach from where which standpoint you look at your life. And I think in the story, Neelima, in spite of all the ups and downs, all those things, she always found a little light in her heart. and she found hope and she found joy. And I think that was something. It's not a sad story in that sense. Of course, there are a lot of sad incidents, but at the same time, I think it is a story where I value those aspects in the lives. And many people have told me that because the whole story is written in a kind of a objective way, in a dispassionate way, in a way. I mean, there is lots of emotions, lots of living of the moments, but it's not like a therapy or a catharsis. So that connects with people, and so many people say that they found their bits of their life or bits of the stories that they know in the story, and probably that is where it is worth it. I think we all women, I would want them to read it and start a dialogue, because there are lots of things that are said which are generally not said about abuse, about
Yes.
relationship issues, and all of that. And I think we should really come out in the open and talk about it at least, and accept it, own it, that this happens. Many times people live in denial for the rest of their lives, and the family lives in denial. Everything is shoved under the carpet. So I think that is where probably the book has a value.
Thank you so much for being on today's podcast, Shailini. We wish you luck. And just for our readers, please pick up the book Fit In, Stand Out, Walk, Stories from a Pushed Away Hill. Congratulations
Thank you.
for this absolutely wonderful book. And thank you so much for being on today's podcast.